Please don't get me wrong here. I'm 100% excited to watch Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor rematch at UFC 202. But there's almost this air of pointlessness to this fight. Now hear me out. The way I'm looking at it is what we have on one side is we have the UFC's featherweight champion who in incredibly timely fashion dethroned the only UFC featherweight champion we've ever had, Jose Aldo, to capture the belt and then ultimately put it on the shelf. Didn't fight. I'm not going to, he's moved on to bigger and better things. And then the other side of things, we've got Nate Diaz, who was almost in obscurity. He fought for the lightweight title, got blown out of the, got destroyed in his bid to win the lightweight title, got crushed by a man who went on to win the title in Rafael dos Anjos. At welterweight, he was 2-2 in the UFC, and really it didn't matter. And now you've got these two individuals here fighting at 170 pounds, and I just don't see the point of it. I would be a little more intrigued if this fight was taking place at 155 and they were saying if Nate wins, Nate versus Eddie Alvarez. If Conor wins, we could see Conor versus Eddie Alvarez in a champion versus champion. But honestly, I don't see the point of this because I don't think whether it be Tyrone Woodley, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, George St. Pierre, whoever comes out of it, Robbie Lawler, whoever's the welterweight champion in the not-too-distant future, I don't see either one of these guys troubling one of those individuals. So I see this kind of a pointless fight taking place at 170. But welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. And on this episode of the show, we're breaking down that UFC 202 card, which will take place on August 20th and feature Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz in the main event. I'll be giving you my predictions for all 5 main card predictions. As is always the case, all of my preliminary breakdowns will be available in writing at kamikazeoverdrive.net. So make sure, before you ask me, why didn't you break down the prelims, bro? To head over to my website, check them out, they're all there. Vote in the public picks. It's pretty crazy. I believe, just quickly taking a peek, we're well into it. Nate Diaz currently has 60% of the vote, and the polls have only been out for a short period of time, lots of votes, so make sure you get your votes in there. The panel's kind of taking a hiatus. There's still some people posting, so make sure you check out the panel and see who has their picks up. Bet packs, as far as they're concerned, my last bet pack, I did win my gold parlay. It basically broke me even for the show. It wasn't a great overall show. I kind of hit a slump there. But you can still buy the UFC 202 pack for $12, or you can buy the next 6 cards, so a value of $72. You can pick up for $56, save yourself $16. That's a pretty good deal. Let's get some action-packed fights in there. UFC 202, UFC on Fox 21, UFC Fight Night 93, also UFC 203 mixed in there, a couple other Fight Night cards, so it should be a fantastic lineup. Certainly get your money invested there if you're interested. And as always, I give you DraftKings lineups and analysis breakdowns for all the cards. I give you parlays that are, lower risk, lower reward. And I also give you some humdingers for if they hit, it's like fucking Christmas, folks. So we'll see, let's go for it like I always do. And without further ado, let's get to that first main card prediction. The first main card fight takes place in the UFC's welterweight division. There are a lot of welterweight fights on this card, and it features the return of the Dirty Bird, Tim Means, record of 25 wins, 7 losses, and 1 draw, taking on the Punisher, Sabah Homasi. We'll go with Homasi for now. And now Means was originally scheduled to face Sean Strickland, which is going to be a very interesting fight. This should still be an entertaining scrap. Homasi stepping in on roughly 2 weeks' notice to take this matchup. Tim Means is 5-1 in his last 6 bouts. That's pretty darn impressive. Now he's returning off some issues with a supplements-based suspension, where there was some of his supplements he was taking had some ingredients in them that weren't cleared. A lot of issues there. I won't get into them. Nonetheless, he is 7-2 since coming back and opting to fight in the welterweight division, which is, it's a pretty impressive run. His losses have come against Neil Magny and Matt Brown, 2 top-level guys. Physically, Tim Means, 2 inches taller, 1 inch reach advantage. The newcomer, Sabah, is 4 years younger. Now, Homasi, he's coming into this matchup with 3 wins in a row. His last 2 wins coming in Titan FC. He has some big stage experience as well, fighting 3 times in Bellator, where he went 1-2, 0-1 in Strikeforce. He did beat Eric Moon in his last Bellator appearance at UFC 124. Now, for Timmy Means, 17 wins by knockout. Wow, that's a big pile of knockouts. 4-3 in fights ending by submission, 4-3 in the scorecards, and he has finished his last 3 opponents. For Homasi, 8 wins by KO, 2 losses by the same method, 2-2 submission, 1-1 decision. And keep in mind, he is 1-2 in fights that go beyond the second round, so he is a finisher, as his numbers would indicate. For Homasi, ATT product. He also fought as represented American Top Team on the Ultimate Fighter 21, where he went 0-1. He is a very big welterweight, and for the most part, he's a fairly dangerous striker. That's where his bread and butter is. Now, when I analyze the video and listen to the reports on him, he's a striker who likes to be first, likes to be aggressive. He has a lot of power in his left hand. He's very effective when he can cut off his opponent and really put pressure on them. Nice left jab as well. He backs his opponent down, picks his spots nicely. He's not a big volume striker. And, on the show when he fought in his own fight, he did a nice job of cutting off the cage, but he didn't throw enough. He cut off the cage, get in position to attack, and then simply not attack. And then when he does attack, it's all at once, and then prolonged periods of inactivity in between his attacks. As I said, left jab, straight right combination is a nice combo he will throw. He throws a big left hook with lots of power. When he fought Jorge Pennington, took him out with a right hand. He'll mix in some high kicks, and he'll throw a stepping knee as well, which can be effective. He does a good job of holding his hands up high, but he tends to keep his guard very open, and he's vulnerable to shots, straight punches right down the middle where his opponent can breach his guard and really tag him. He can also get a little bit of wild when he is attacking, and just simply too aggressive. He's looking to finish his opponent without really setting up his offense. Once on top, if the fight does go to the mat, I didn't see a ton of wrestling from him. He has some hard elbows and hammer fists from the guard if he gets on top, but at the same time, he is vulnerable to fighters who want to take him down and can get pinned along the cage. Now, Tim means we are all very familiar with what the Dirty Bird brings to the cage. He is exceptionally dangerous in the clinch. He has an excellent job using his height and his length and his reach to reach in and control his opponent's head and crush those short elbows into their skull, pull his opponent's head right in. He'll also work knees in a similar fashion or attack the body. And as dangerous as he is in close, he's equally as nasty at range, throwing high kicks, lead leg kicks, a lot of hard low kicks as well, and he's very good at checking his opponent's leg techniques and making them pay for looking to attack his lower half and really, making them kind of shy away from that. Also, look for him to use that teep to the body to try and, both keep distance and take the wind out of his opponent, catch them coming in, and really pound away with that offensive weapon. Another thing I like to see what he does, he will constantly paw with the right hand to just really disrupt his opponent. He'll pop out some jabs, but he paws with the right hand. He'll even grab his opponent's lead hand. It really neutralizes, shuts them down because they can never get the rhythm when that's constantly in their face. He throws some nice counter strikes. We saw against Brown. He was countering him as he was coming in, landing a nice right hook. He will also throw elbow strikes as counters when his opponent moves in, which can really catch them off guard and be an effective technique when you catch their momentum and maximizes the impact your strikes can have. He will slide out of range very effectively when he's at distance. Does a good job of avoiding using angles when he's in close and slipping out of where his opponents can hit him and still landing. He has been knocked down in multiple fights, and he was hurt before getting submitted by Matt Brown. He didn't use a ton of head movement in the Matt Brown fight. He showed he wants to improve upon that. We saw much more of that in the John Howard matchup, getting his head off center line when he was attacking. Look for him to attack the body with a jab or a right hook. Throws a nice straight left, right jab combination as well. Has a right uppercut. He will move in. He rocked John Howard with a very hard left. And Howard's not an easy guy to put away, or at least traditionally is an easy guy to put away. When he took out Howard, he landed a very short left hook while slipping off to the side, so it shows he doesn't even need to be putting everything into a punch to stop his opponent. Big thing with means he can be taken down. It's not easy, and he has lost some fights where, via submission or on the mat. He's given up 16 takedowns in his 3 UFC fights, and that's kind of an indicator of what kind of style you need to defeat Tim Means. Either the submission to Brown or the 16 takedowns over the 3 other losses in the UFC. That's not Homasi's style. That's not what he's going to look to stand and strike with Means, which is going to be a difficult scenario for him. It's short notice for the UFC newcomer. He's traditionally used to short fights as well. The step up in competition and the debut are all negative factors that has me saying this fight goes deeper. It's going to be Tim Means' ball game. Means is the more consistent striker. I think he needs to avoid those big moments from Homasi, which is certainly something to be concerned with. He'll disrupt that timing with that teep and the jab and the hand fighting that he constantly does. And either Means lands a big counter as Homasi gets aggressive and moves in, or he attacks on the outside, sits back, and hurts him. My prediction either way is Tim Means to defeat Sabah Homasi by TKO. Fight number 2 in the main card also takes place in the welterweight division, and it also features an injury replacement. We have Hyun Lim, the ace, Hyun Lim of South Korea, 13 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw, taking on Platinum Mike Perry, undefeated at 6-0. Perry is replacing Sultan Aliyev, who was originally scheduled to face Lim just over 2 weeks' notice. He last fought in May, and this is his 3rd fight of 2016, so inactivity certainly not an issue for Perry. Now, Lim is coming off a TKO loss to Neil Magny. He has now lost 2 of his last 3 fights, both coming against top competition, and he is 3-2 in the UFC overall. He's also coming in off a 15-month layoff, and he had a little bit of a break before the Magny fight as well, so he hasn't been the most active of late. Now, for Lim, he is a massive welterweight, huge welterweight. He has had some weight cutting issues, and the cardio has suffered as a result. The IV ban, I'm not 100%. Yeah, we're in Vegas, so I'm assuming that's still in play. So that could be an issue with Lim. We'll have to keep an eye on him at the weigh-ins. He's 5 inches taller than his opponent. The reach isn't available. He'll probably have a 3 to 6 inch reach advantage, and he is 6 years older than Perry. Now for Lim, 10 wins by knockout, 2-2 in fights ended by submission, 1-2 in decision. So you see what he does and what he brings to the table. He has 9 first-round wins. He is coming off the first KO loss of his career, which came on the mat. Basically, he gassed himself out trying to finish Magny and got put away. For Perry, all 6 of his wins have come by knockout, 4 in the opening round. The biggest win on his record, John Manley, who was an Ultimate Fighter. He lost to Neil Magny in his lone UFC appearance, trying to earn himself a spot in the UFC after failing on the Ultimate Fighter. For Perry, he doesn't have any prior combat experience outside of mixed martial arts. He's a physical specimen, impressive that way, and that's what he's building his overall MMA base upon. As a striker, he's relatively patient, throws a lot of big single strikes, looking to really put his opponent away. Everything comes with power. A lot of his kicks are to keep his opponent at range, and he'll throw some big knees in the clinch. He hurt one of his last opponents with some knees inside, stunned him with a right hook, followed with a left. He has a nice left jab. The right was where a lot of his power is generated from. Once he had his opponent hurt, he kind of swarmed him, put some combinations together, but for the most part, again, it's a lot of individual strikes is what he's looking to throw. He tends to, and I read this in some of the reports, and I saw this in some of the film, he has a tendency to kind of wait and look at his work, basically. He'll throw a punch, and he's slow to pull his hands back, and he kind of wants to see the impact, and that can leave him open to being countered, especially by a guy like Lim, who's going to look to try and tag him in pursuit, in response to Perry landing anything on him. Not a big volume striker, not a lot of footwork overall or head movement. He wants to get in there, he wants to stand and bang, and at the regional scene, that certainly works against less talented fighters. At the UFC level, that's going to be a hard issue to overcome. Another thing I saw, when he kicks, he tends to let his hands fall really low and holds his head up high. And his entire focus is on landing that leg kick, and that leaves him wide open for other counters. And he really commits on punches. When he throws, especially if his opponent is able to roll with a punch and avoid the initial impact, it really carries Perry off balance. Now for Lim, he is an uber aggressive fighter as well, and he has shown to be very effective with that. He has incredible amount of power behind everything he throws. He has a decent variety of strikes that he will offer, and he really can hurt you with anything that he lands. When he does strike, he leads with a stiff left jab and really pumps it out there. He'll follow with a hard left hook as well, mixes in some uppercuts, decent array of kicks, and those brutal knee strikes that he will work in. He stunned Neil Magny, almost finished Neil Magny, hit him with a huge right hand that really hurt and backed up Magny, and we saw Lim go for it and basically gas himself out. He had Magny doubled over and was firing knees. He was close to putting away, ultimately couldn't land that finishing blow, but it certainly was looking good for the Korean fighter in that period of time. In some of his notable UFC wins against Pascal Kraus and Marcelo Guimaraes, he was able to take them out with knee strikes, especially Guimaraes, who kept throwing the same techniques, kind of ducking his head, Lim timed it, and eventually, boom, counter with a knee and put him down. Similar situation there. He's very good at picking his opponent's cadences up and capitalizing on them. Now, one thing I have seen with Lim, he does get too aggressive, absolutely. He will telegraph his strikes at times. He can be hit. He will slow down. He doesn't use his reach that well, as it gets hit a lot. He lands 5.15 strikes landed per minute, but gives up 5.08 strikes absorbed per minute. He certainly is not the type of fighter who can carry his pace over a long matchup. We saw that in the 5-round matchup against Tarek Saffiedine. He's still dangerous, but he's not nearly as effective, and he's probably going to lose a decision. Definitely over a 5-round fight. He's the type of guy, if he hits you enough to win a decision, he's probably knocked you out before we actually get to that distance. The cardio is an issue. If he hurts his opponent's head and he doesn't put them away, that can be an issue as well. But overall, Perry lacks that volume or technical ability to overwhelm or outpoint Lim. His tendency to load up on shots and really wing those single strikes is, with limited movement, head movement, and footwork, is going to leave him open to big strikes from Lim, big counter strikes, big initiation strikes he initiates when he initiates the exchanges, when he leads the dance. I think Lim's going to find success countering Perry, especially those kicks, and my prediction is Hyun Lim to defeat Mike Perry by knockout. Oh boy, now we're getting down to the bread and butter. Another welterweight fight, the third of 4 welterweight fights on the main card. Probably the third and only the third real legit welterweight matchup. As the 9th-ranked Rick the Horror Story, 19 wins and 8 losses, takes on former lightweight title challenger and 14th-ranked Donald Cowboy Cerrone with a current record of 30 wins, 7 losses, and 1 no contest. Now looking at this matchup, Cerrone's has had some decent success at welterweight. Now you see what he took on Alex Oliveira, who was kind of a beefed-up lightweight, similar situation to Cerrone, took him out. But then he took on a guy who's fought as high as 205, made a title run at middleweight, and has had some success at welterweight in Patrick Cote, and Cerrone became the first man to officially knock out Patrick Cote in impressive fashion. Now it's that nice escalation of competition, taking on a top 10 guy in Rick Story, and we'll see where it goes from there. He only has 2 losses in his last 13 fights, and those both came against the former UFC lightweight champions. Cerrone has been on an impressive run. For Rick Story, he's also enjoying a lot of resurgence of late. 3 straight wins, including solid wins over Gunnar Nelson and Tarek Saffiedine, both upsets in those fights. Physically, Cerrone 4 inches taller, 2-inch reach advantage. Rick Story is 1 year younger, and keep in mind, Story is a southpaw, which is so is Rafael dos Anjos a southpaw. So there could be some issues there as far as how Cerrone lines up with him. But looking at Cerrone, we know what he brings to the table. Again, he's a lethal Muay Thai striker, throws exceptionally hard kicks, works those knees in beautifully. He's a good combination striker. He can work in range or in close and be very dangerous in both scenarios. He throws a nice front kick to the body. He'll throw head kicks. He sets up his kicks by going in different areas and making you drop your hands to protect your midsection. He'll go high, you start worrying about protecting your legs. He'll go to the midsection. You get the point. I really like his brutal stepping knee. It's a nice counter as opponent moves forward. It stops that forward pressure. It can really take a lot of windows. It can stop an opponent if he hits them just right with it. He'll also throw those low kicks that can take away the movement. We saw him batter Cote with those low kicks and took away a lot of his movement. When he is in close, look for those knee strikes. Again, pulls opponent's head down in. He used a lot of leg kicks to take out Eddie Alvarez and take his base, and just those slick combinations. He pairs up his strikes. Sometimes he'll throw a 1-2 and finish with a leg kick. It's all good for Donald Cerrone. When he fought Cote, a lot of people said stay on the outside, and that's usually the traditional way to look at Donald Cerrone, use his length, but he had a lot of success inside. Landed a short left hook on the inside that dropped Cote, put him away with a right, I think it was a short right on the inside as well that dropped and eventually finished him. Cerrone is really developing and rounding out his game. He is at his best, though, when he can walk down his opponent, throw those 2-3 punch combinations, and keep them going backwards. His elbows and knees are also something he'll work in a combination. I talked about that a lot. He did struggle with the boxing of Eddie Alvarez and Nick Diaz. He's not the same fighter when he's moving backwards and under pressure, and that's something to keep in mind. We saw Jim Miller have some success countering him and landing some big rights. Dos Anjos also rocked him with a right hand, so that seems to be something he's vulnerable to. He does hang his left hand a little bit low. We saw some wrestling out of Cerrone against Cote, ducking under some of Patrick's combinations and scoring takedowns. I don't think we'll see that against Rick Story, who's a very good wrestler, but we have also seen Story taken down in multiple fights before, so you never know. Now, for Rick the Horror Story, he does his best work along the cage, targets his body with just vicious body shots, and really lets his hands go, just comes forward relentlessly and really looks to overwhelm his opponent. He thrives when he can push his opponent backwards, and that's something worth noting here. He'll jam his opponent up with takedowns and the clinch work if they do try and push forward. He's just a very aggressive fighter. He has a nice left hand, good power in it. He'll also throw a short right hook. He'll double it up at times, half power the first one, full power the second one. We saw him drop Gunnar Nelson with a right hook. He also hurt Calvin Gastelum with the same strike in that matchup. He can punch in close and do a very good job of that. He pinned Tarek Saffiedine along the wall, took away a lot of his movement, smothered him there, landed multiple body shots in close. He'll throw a lot of punch-kick combinations, slamming a leg kick in at the very end. He has good timing on his leg kicks, can cut out the base of his opponent if he can get in on the inside. When he fought Saffiedine, though, Story is a wrestler, and he was forcing some of his takedowns along the cage, and Saffiedine was able to shut that down. We also saw Tarek have success landing knee strikes, also landing some head strikes against Rick, who's a little bit short on the shorter side as far as welterweights are concerned. I also don't like the way Rick Story tends to be a little bit wide with his strikes, coming in with hooks. He moves forward kind of relentlessly. He's open to counters down the middle, which is something I think Donald Cerrone is going to look to capitalize on. Story's avenue to victory in this matchup is with body shots, takedowns, and constant pressure. Be relentless, wear out Donald Cerrone, and do not stop. For Cerrone, he should have a speed advantage. He'll certainly have a length advantage. He doesn't want to slug it out with Story in close, even though we saw him be effective against Patrick Cote, and he can still do damage in there. He wants to use his gifts to the utmost, which is his length striking. Use that counter knee. If Story comes forward, use those counter strikes down the middle. I also expect to see, stories wide strikes leaving over to being cracked with big shots. Also, that lower stature is going to leave him open for a head kick. And my prediction of Donald Cerrone to defeat Rick Story by knockout. Oh boy, time for the co-main event. Put the kids to bed if you haven't already. This is going to be a slugfest. UFC's light heavyweight division showcased here. The number one contender, Anthony Rumble Johnson, 21 wins and 5 losses, former title challenger, taking on fellow former title challenger, Brazil's number 2 ranked Glover Teixeira, with a current record of 25 wins and 4 losses. Now, the winner of this fight almost certainly gets the next title shot at Daniel Cormier. Even if John Jones comes back, the UFC is not going to trust him until he proves on multiple occasions that he is ready to go. Rumble's already lost to DC. He wants a shot to get back in there. He felt he had his moments. He has learned and grown as a fighter. For Teixeira, he lost to John Jones, so the title went the distance. Both guys have a couple common opponents. Ryan Bader both beat Ryan Bader, both knocked him out. They both fought Phil Davis. Johnson defeated, won a decision. Glover Teixeira lost a decision in that title fight let down after the fact. Now, since fighting for the title, Johnson has gone 2-0 with a couple solid wins for Bader and Jimmy Manawa, both by knockout. Teixeira lost to Phil Davis, as already mentioned, but has since ripped off 3 victories, stopping OSP, stopping Patrick Cummins, and most recently stopping Rashad Evans. So these guys have really cemented themselves as the next 2, big fighters in the division. Both guys have been knocked out once. Glover, but it's not like their chins are terrible. Glover got knocked out in his pro debut all the way back in 2002. Rumble's loss came via eye poke. But we have seen Glover rocked a couple times. We'll talk about that in a bit. Both guys 6'2", 2-inch reach advantage for the American. He is also 5 years younger. Now for Rumble, 15 wins by knockout. Yeah, we know that. 0-4 in fights ended by submission, 6-0 on the scorecards, which is surprising for a guy known for having such poor cardio. For Glover Teixeira, 15 wins by knockout as well, 7-0 in fights ended by submission, 3-3 on the scorecards. You'd think with the diversity that Teixeira throws at you and the questionable cardio that Rumble has, you'd figure those decision records would be flip-flopped, but that's not the case. Now for Johnson, he moves forward with confidence and with bad intentions. He sits down on his punches and he throws, and his kicks as well. He throws with dangerous power. I'll look for him to pop out that left jab, come with a straight right. He will throw some nice low kicks that can really do a lot of damage. He'll go high and go to the body as well. He throws a very interesting push kick to the body, which can really catch a fighter off guard as they're coming in. He KO'd Jimmy Manawa with a brutal right hand, and look for him to throw those uppercuts. We saw him land some against Nogueira and almost sent him into orbit. As I said, his kicks, very lethal, hard kicks to the legs, head, and body. He'll work in the clinch as well and land knees from that position. Now the wrestling, when he fought Daniel Cormier, Cormier dominated him with wrestling, and that really took his cardio away. But at the same time, Phil Davis attempted something similar, and he could not put Rumble on the mat. And that's, it shows the different level of MMA wrestling and what they bring to the table and who can be effective and who wasn't effective against him. Now, his cardio, again, it's not perfect. Against Jimmy Manawa, he was breathing heavy after the opening round. But he didn't tire out to the point where he couldn't fight, and he still finished him. It was effective against Davis. He was able to pace himself, fought the fight he wanted to fight, took his shots, and won that matchup in a decision. When Ryan Bader tried to shoot on him, we saw what Johnson did very well. He shut the shot down, put himself in position, and finished the fight based on his ability to defend the initial takedown. Rumble also, he's a good wrestler. He'll look for his own takedowns. He took Manawa down a couple of times. He has massive ground and pound, as he did against Bader, as he did against Gustafsson. He will ride his opponent's back and look to unload with massive shots where he can put them away, and that's something to watch for here. No, with Glover Teixeira, he's very aggressive. Boxing-based fighter, throws good combinations, works in close very effectively. A pocket puncher, if you will. He will throw kicks, but they're not his bread and butter. They're certainly a secondary aspect of his offense. He'll fire out that left jab. Look for him to rip to the body as well. He hurt Rampage Jackson with a left hook. He KO'd Evans in a similar fashion. When he fought Rashad, he did an excellent job of cutting off the cage, taking away all of Rashad's movement and putting pressure and forcing him to engage and eventually landing that finishing blow. When he fought Rampage, he was very aggressive early on. He was almost to the point of being wild. He eventually settled down and fought a much better fight. But if he opens up and chases his opponents, which he has a tendency to do, that leaves him vulnerable to getting cracked with something big. And against Rumble Johnson, cracked with something big means you are looking up at the lights in a moment. And it's not going to be pretty. When he fought, and like I said, he's only been knocked out once. But his chin, he was rocked by Bader. Fabio Maldonado even rocked him with a hook. OSP cracked him with a huge body shot and had him hurt, had him in trouble. He was still firing back, and it's the same thing way he eventually knocked out Bader, was he's firing back in the aftermath of getting hurt. but it's still a scenario where he is vulnerable if somebody lands that perfect shot. Glover Teixeira, one thing he doesn't get enough credit for, he has very good offensive wrestling and a very good submission game. Heavy ground and pound, so we saw him break OSP down a fight I perfectly predicted in that matchup. He eventually mounted him, uses a ground and pound, and eventually opened up to one of his signature submissions, his arm triangle. For his takedowns, he looked for that single leg. He struggled against OSP to initially land it. He eventually moved to a double leg. He had similar success taking Rampage down and dominating him on the mat. And that's something, can he get Rumble down and dominate from top position? We've seen Rumble, as I said, has issues with guys who look for takedowns and can be successful with their takedowns. Glover has had his own issues giving up takedowns. We saw it against John Jones. We saw it against Phil Davis. We saw it against Patrick Cummins. If Rumble shoots, can he get Glover on the mat? So the wrestling exchanges could be a very telling part of this matchup if these guys don't look to just bang and slug it out, which could very well be the case. Glover has power, but for my money, he cannot stand and trade shots with Rumble Johnson. He needs to avoid Rumble early, but at the same time, by doing that, and I said the same thing with Ryan Bader, when you avoid Rumble and try and pick your shots, Johnson says fine. He's going to come forward with power, and you're not going to wear him out if you're not pushing the action as well and opening yourself up to potentially getting hit, but also opening him up to being worn down. If Glover shoots, I think he's going to struggle to power through Rumble's hips and put him down. He's going to run the risk of getting stuffed, and Anthony Johnson getting on top of him, moving to that back control situation, and unloading with those massive shots where he controls one arm and you have nowhere to go. It's very difficult to stand with Rumble Johnson and win the fight. Let's just say that. Rumble, if he's just too active, he's too aggressive, he's too powerful coming forward. I see him cutting off the cage against Glover and backing him up. He's going to exploit those openings that Glover leaves, especially if he unloads. Look for Rumble to land with power, stuff any takedown attempts from the Brazilian, and even shoot for his own, potentially get on top of either one of those situations. Eventually, Rumble lands something, and my prediction is Anthony Rumble Johnson to defeat Glover Teixeira by knockout. So here we go, the long-awaited rematch, as the 20 wins and 10 losses of Nate Diaz takes on the notorious Conor McGregor, the featherweight champion of the UFC, Ireland's own Conor McGregor, currently holding a 19-win, 3-loss record. Now, this is the rematch of a fight that was originally set to take place at 155 pounds between Conor and Rafael dos Anjos, with the 155-pound title on the line. It moved to 170 after dos Anjos pulled out and Diaz stepped in. It was supposed to get on at UFC 200. You know about the shenanigans that unfolded there. And again, I already talked about it in my intro, that just the lack of sense this fight makes, even though I'm looking forward to it. But certainly there's a lot of other interesting fights that I think pertain more to title fights and progression of the division that I think would make more sense. As I said, 145 pounds have been put on halt for McGregor. He had won 15 in a row before he fought Diaz, dating back to 2010. That big loss, kind of with that kind of a run, kind of feels like that first loss. Long time forced an opponent to go back to the that thing, you go back to the board and you write stuff on and you change your opinion. Back to the drawing board, that's what I'm looking for. And I certainly expect to see that at Conor. For Diaz, he was kind of teetering on irrelevancy after a 1-3 run in the UFC, but he's picked up a couple of quality wins over Michael Johnson against Conor McGregor. Keep in mind, he's 2-2 in the welterweight division, so I don't anticipate a win here, getting him a title shot anytime soon in a division that's very stacked with future contenders. Physically, Diaz 3 inches taller, 2-inch reach advantage. The Irishman is 3 years younger. Now, in their first fight, which I picked Conor to win, took place at UFC 196, March 5th. Diaz had 11 days to prep for that matchup, and for Conor McGregor, he had been prepping to fight at 155 pounds, and he weighed in at 168 pounds on when he hit the scales. For McGregor, in that matchup, I'll just give you a quick run on how that played out. He came out switching stances. He threw a lot of kicks early on, was constantly looking for that big overhand right. He was stepping in with a left hand way too frequently when he was attacking. Throwing some uppercuts as well. When Nate leaned in, he was hitting Nate a lot, but just not having the effect that he normally does. Wasn't setting up his strikes nearly as effectively as I've seen him in the past. He looked to be breathing very heavy after round one. Seemed a little discouraged that he simply couldn't put Nate away with some of the shots he landed on him. I felt he opened up the second round, landing some pretty good shots, even better shots than he landed in the first round. Again, throwing some big power from the left side. Really, he opened and cut Nate Diaz as well, and he was having success early in round two. Nate started to clinch up in that matchup when he could get a hold of him, was using a lot of heavy shoulder pressure into the cage, popping out that jab as we know that he does, attacking the head, attacking the body, through a nice check hook as well to kind of catch Conor leaning in. Nate had a lot of success, though, landing quick 1-2s. That right jab started to turn that fight in his favor. He was landing that right jab straight left, which hurt Conor, really changed that matchup. Started backing Conor out of the cage, landing short combinations, short punches in the clinch. Landing that, again, pumping that long jab out again, landing that straight right. Conor was forced to kind of shoot, panic wrestle, if you will, a term he coined, led to that submission victory. Looking at this matchup, how is this going to play out? For Nate Diaz, the big thing right off the bat, he has a full camp. That's massive. A full camp to prepare to both physically get to the point, and we'll talk about this momentarily, but he has that's a big advantage for him. For Nate Diaz, look for him to try and sit in the pocket and land strikes. He's a high-volume striker, death by accumulation. Land strikes, roll with those punches, and I watched Robin Black's breakdowns. They were both fantastic on both sides. I'm taking a lot from that. I also watched some other stuff. Obviously, I do my own research, but hey, when you see stuff that you agree with, why not talk about it as well, as long as you cite your sources. But look for him to roll with punches. And when Conor comes in, if Conor lands, Nate lands. Don't let, as Robin said, not a lot of unanswered strikes. Don't let Conor land and land that power without making him pay for it. The other thing is, Nate, be elusive. Make Conor swing and miss. If Conor's going to look for those big knockout blows, if you're able to avoid them, that's going to take a lot of his gas tank when he has to retract those punches back in if they don't actually hit Nate Diaz. And I think the other thing is, again, use that jab, hand fight, break Conor's timing. Don't let Conor just sit there and throw shots when he's ready and just do things at his own pace. The other thing is, if he can force McGregor, like he did last time, to wrestle, to shoot on him where he's uncomfortable, to try and prove that his ground game is as good as he thinks it is or says it is, that's certainly an advantage to Nate Diaz. And while Nate has had issues in the past with strong wrestlers, I don't think Conor falls into that category. Now with McGregor, what is he's talked about going back to that elusive drawing board, preparing, retooling, bringing in new training partners, getting to the point where he's a different fighter coming into this, dealing with the weight cut differently, or at least managing that weight, not bulking up to the point where it really takes a lot out of what he brings to the cage. In that last matchup when he was throwing his left hand, he was only doing it with power. He has, as again Robin Black points out, he has two ways of throwing it. Big time power, and then with speed, snap it out there, then load up on it the next time. He was way too predictable. He came forward way too much. He wore himself out a lot of time, throwing strikes that were having mixed results on Nate, but certainly taking a lot out of him. Looking at this, as I said, Nate has short camp for the last matchup. Now he's got a full camp both to prepare for Conor McGregor, physically and mentally, the game plan and peak physically. Also, he has confidence in the fact he's already beat him. That's certainly something in Conor's head, and Conor knows this is a big time issue if he were to lose this matchup. I think that overshadows the fact that Conor, weighed in at 168 pounds, and people are saying, well, he was sluggish. That took a lot out of him. It really, he didn't manage his weight properly. He didn't manage his physical attributes properly, I guess, based on what his body was able to respond to. I think that's excuses the way I'm looking at it. Can Conor hold up over 5 rounds? Possibly. Nate Diaz is traditionally very tough to put away. We saw Josh Thompson in a fight I predicted. Josh Thompson knock him out. So it's not impossible to stop him, but I really think Nate Diaz's volume over 5 rounds, if it gets that far, over 3 rounds, is going to be an issue. He's the larger man. That grappling edge will also play a role. Conor's very aware he does not want to go to the mat with Nate. And I think, Conor got discouraged in the last fight when he couldn't finish him. And when that early finish doesn't materialize here, I think he'll get discouraged again. I think this fight's going to go a little bit longer than the last one. I think Nate's going to avoid the early damage, really, land those jabs, keep those straight punches, keep right in the pocket, kind of limit some of the kicking game that Conor brings to the table. Nate's going to get hit. He doesn't want to take too many of those big shots, take too much damage. He doesn't want to bleed too much. But I think as long as he's getting hit but dealing out his own, level of damage and at his own output at his own pace, I think that's going to work out very well for him. Nate's going to land more strikes. He will pull away as Conor starts to slow down, as things start to not work. The damage starts to pile up, and he starts to find that efficiently he's not able to keep up with Nate. And whether it be rounds 3, 4, or 5, we eventually see Nate Diaz land something. And my prediction is Nate Diaz to defeat Conor McGregor by TKO. So those are my 5 main card predictions for UFC 202. All of my preliminary predictions, as I mentioned, will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. A lot of people have pointed out to me that Nate is the underdog, which is interesting. Certainly, other people are also pointing out, it's in the media going around, that Nate stands to lose a lot of money if he loses, or to win a lot of money, my apologies, if he loses this fight, and there is a trilogy put in place, because the UFC will capitalize on that, even though they've said Conor's next fight will take place at 145 pounds. Somewhere down the road they'll hook it up for a third time and say we need to have a clear and cut winner here. And that's a big payday that's staring in Nate's face. Not that I'm saying he's going to throw the fight or anything like that. I'm just saying that's got to be weighing on his mind a little bit. Nonetheless, I like the pick I made. I'm looking forward to this very much. Certainly consider buying the bet pack, so I'll have lots of information. I'm going to have some doozy, have some parlays that have some big-time payouts. I'm looking to hit them hard. I also have those more moderate, less-risk payouts that'll cover your ass and hopefully make you some money as well. It's your choice which ones you want to play. I know which ones I'm playing, which is usually all of them. Nonetheless, thanks for tuning in, guys. Follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. Also on Facebook, all that fun stuff. And we got a lot of fights coming up. Talk to you soon. Take care.